Good evening. And in this second hour of the show every Monday night, we've got a new section called They Say I Live in the Past, where I get the opportunity to interview some people from the world of music, and they select around 8 tracks, and we talk about their music and we talk about that music, and sometimes it brings us back into the past and leaps us off into the future as well. And I'm absolutely delighted to be joined tonight by Ricky Dineen. Now, Ricky Dineen is an Irish musician, best known as the co-songwriter, guitarist, and sometimes bassist, as far as I remember, or I've been told, with the post-punk band Five Go Down to the Sea, or Nun Attax, or Beethoven. I think it was called effing Beethoven at one point. I don't think it was effing though. And Five Go Down to the Sea were a hugely influential band on later generations of Irish bands, and lots of other people as well. And sometimes that's not always remembered, but hopefully it is being remembered at the moment, because Ricky continues to write and perform, and he plays guitar with Big Boy Foolish, himself and Liam Heffernan, and they've got 3 singles out as we speak, and hopefully more by the time this goes out. And lots of people that you would have heard of within the music industry talk about Ricky and those bands back in the early days of Cork as well, with lots of pride as well. So good evening, Ricky. That was the short version of your introduction.
Oh, good evening. 4 singles for Big Boy Foolish, actually.
4 singles at the moment. Yeah. And you're heading towards an album at some point?
I would imagine so, yeah. I mean, that's the plan. I mean, nothing is written in stone, but yeah, we're constantly writing and sending tracks and pieces of music to each other, and the tracks are developing. So hopefully it will all lead to an album eventually.
Brilliant. And so the idea of this was to select 8 tracks. Was that a difficult one for you to do?
It was, actually, yeah. Some of them, I mean, the first track came kind of fairly naturally to me, because that's the kind of song or the tune that really got me into this kind of post-punky, soundy music type, you know. Mm-hmm. It's something that I remember. The rest of them then after that were kind of, they were all tough choices, because I could have a few tracks in each kind of time zone, if you know what I mean.
I do, yeah.
But, and this one was particularly because it kind of sparked everything into life for me.
Yeah, and it was in 1978. You've given me all the years as well. I didn't have to do any research. 1978. So you would have been, what, 16, 17?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah. Then, yeah.
And so were you listening to the music like lots of people then, I suppose, were on the radio?
At that time, I kind of had been recently kind of rescued from kind of Deep Purple and Rainbow and all that sort of stuff that I was listening to, because I met Finbar Donnelly, who and as you know, to become the singer. And, he kind of introduced me to the punk scene. Like, so I was listening to, the Sex Pistols and The Clash. And, and it was John Peel then. You say, I should listen to John Peel. Of course I did. And it was very, very difficult to get over here. You could get it late at night. And when I heard this song, it really it blew my mind.
Little
was, of course, Teenage Jesus and the Jerks, the choice of my guest this evening, Ricky Dineen. The first track up tonight, Orphans, that is. And Ricky, you said were you playing guitar already then?
I was just after starting, basically. Just after buying one.
Yeah.
I mean, listening to that guitar there, I mean, you couldn't fail to want to play the guitar after listening to that.
And that's what I'm thinking there, because were you, I suppose, as soon as you get the guitar, you got the chords, you're trying to do a Deep Purple track or whatever, and then you hear something like this on John Peel, and you think, right, hang on,
everything
I'll
goes
go another way
completely. Like, I mean, God,
yeah.
I mean, that kind of raspy guitar sound, like, I mean, I think Andy Gill kind of uses similar kind of a guitar sound, kind of like in that kind of like, it's like played with a nail file or something like that. It's brilliant altogether. But I was nowhere near, at that stage now where we're talking about kind of trying to hold your fingers onto the fretboard stage. It was very early stages for me, as a guitar player. But, it was a great influence, like, and he wanted to get a guitar sound like that. Even though at that time, I remember I had I bought a guitar, and it was about a year before I got an amp. So, you'd be kind of putting your the head of the guitar up against a wardrobe, trying to make it sound louder.
I know, and I think that's something Billy Bragg used to do in the early days as well, actually. Billy Bragg, when he got his electric guitar, yeah.
Yeah, and it was just kind of, because the actual price of instruments and stuff like that was a lot in proportion to your wages.
Of course.
Was a lot. It was very expensive. Yeah. Whereas now, like, you can just gotta, if you have any, half bit, just get on to Toman and buy a guitar. I think I'll buy a guitar nowadays.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it was definitely a big investment. And were you thinking at that point, you know what, I'm going to do this now. I'm going to join a band or get into music? Because at that time in Ireland, well, in lots of places, I suppose it would have been the show bands that were anyone that was kind of making some money within music. There wasn't necessarily
Yeah, the show bands were actually kind of starting to fade away, and there was kind of a lot of kind of like rock bands around the place, playing blues and things like that. Perfectly fine bands. Like, they didn't do anything for me. It wasn't for my style. And I don't think, like, I had formulated wanted to play a band. In fact, I don't think Donnelly wasn't even asked to sing at that stage. But it was formulating in the mind all the time. That's the way we wanted to go. That's I said, if I am going to be in a band, it's going to be something like that, something outrageous or something mad.
Something mad, and we'll come to some of the mad stuff in a bit as well. Your second track, you've chosen a track from The Cure, and it took me back actually, because I had forgotten that it was from around the same time, 1978.
It was, yeah, and it was actually I remember buying it. I can't be as trendy enough to say it was my first ever single that I bought, but it was a double A side with 10:15 on a Saturday night. Yeah. Oh my God, it was a fantastic. It was like it kind of, with the punk rock was still flying at the time, like, and it just kind of, there was a lot more than chords. Like, this was kind of start really kind of post-punky kind of a sound. It was fantastic. And then these short song then as well. Like, it's brilliant. And as a double A side, because the other side is fantastic as well, 10:15 on a Saturday night.
Yeah. And when you were starting out then, putting songs together, was it covers of these songs, or were you thinking, no, we're going to do our own, or we're going to try and do our own?
It was a mixture. I remember we played our first gig. It was in Valentine's night in 1979. And it was a mixture of kind of our own, and they were just barely kind of two-fingered chords, our own songs were. And then we did a few kind of like Ramones numbers, and we did a couple of Sex Pistols. I think we did Bodies, because it was easy to play.
Brilliant. Right, okay.
Two forgettable ones of our own.
Somebody will have them somewhere, right? So your second track is Killing an Arab from The Cure.
I'm alive.
Cure, of course, with Killing an Arab, and I'm joined by Ricky Dineen this evening. Ricky, you were mentioning about short tracks as well, short songs. Does that mean you had to write like a rake of them to be able to do a gig?
This is it, yeah. We always have much more, even with big bifolars nowadays. The songs are reasonably short. They're all around 3 minutes, like, so we have to kind of fit more songs in per gig. But it's just that, we when they go on too long, we just get bored of them, to be honest with you. And it's still, it was the same, it was the same then, and it's the same now. The Cure, that was brilliant even now again, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's great to hear it. I mean, I'm listening to it on headphones here as well, but there's something, that's why it shocked me when I was looking at the list and I thought 1978, it can't be that far ago. And it was, but it sounds absolutely brilliant still. Your next track, we're moving up to 1980 now, The Birthday Party, which featured Nick Cave amongst some other great musicians. Why have you chosen this one?
It's like, I always loved The Birthday Party at the time as well. And we were kind of like, they were way ahead of us musically, but we were kind of developing around the same time. Later, a few people had comparisons with Donnelly's voice and Nick Cave's voice. And there were similarities. There was a song we did by Nun Attax, and when I was looking, kind of researching for this the other day, I discovered a song that we have, which is called Rika's Sunfair, and the song we're playing next, they were released within 2 months of each other.
Wow.
And you could hear in Rika's Sunfair, Donnelly, I love you, and all that kind of, and this song as well, Nick Cave was doing something similar. Yeah. And I just found it was kind of fascinating to learn that a couple of days ago. when I was
amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah, but look, it was a struggle to pick a birthday party song. But this one, I would have to say is my favourite.
And you were saying at the time, I mean, we've mentioned him a couple of times already this evening, Finbar Donnelly. Finbar was, everything I've read all about Finbar talks about him being a one-off and there was no one else kind of like him. And people were kind of a bit intimidated to start with, but then once you got to know him, or he allowed you to know him or whatever, it was different again. Is that fair?
It is, yeah. He was very intimidated. People were afraid to talk to him. And I even think he put on a show, especially, for journalists.
Yeah.
I remember a guy flew in from Songs to interview us, and I think Micro Disney, he came into Cork, Donnelly put on a show, kind of spitting his drink into his face and all that sort of thing.
And was Finbar like that when there wasn't journalists
Not
around?
Really, no. It was just for the crack. But he was a great crack all the time. But he was kind of a fairly gentle soul, really, in real life.
Yeah, and when actually you mentioned Micro Disney there as well. Carl Coughlin has also had the joy of doing one of these, and when he knew that you were going to be on, he said, "I have to make sure I say, how's it going, bye?"
Oh, bye.
So, and he's got a new album coming out as well. So
that sounded
great.
I did listen to the latest one the other night. It was absolutely fantastic. Jesus,
brilliant.
We pronounce Colin, but he pronounces it Coughlin, but it's pronounced Colin in Cork.
All right.
Just always about that.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I might change the pronunciation then from here on.
Well, he might.
Right.
That thing is he will say that.
No, yeah. I've got the interview. It's all right now.
It's done.
Right, that was the birthday party with Mr. Clarinet, the choice of Ricky Dineen. Ricky, I do hear what you're saying there, because obviously there is a similar kind of sound to what you were doing at the same time. It's a bit mad, isn't it?
It kind of became more apparent later as well. We did more stuff later on, because Nun Attax, we were very we were barely after learning the guitars at that stage, but we got a little bit more musical. And Donnelly's voice started getting a bigger range. Yeah, like it started sounding a little bit like Nick Cave as well.
Yeah.
I'd love to have seen him live, actually. It's the only one regret, because we were in London. I think they were gone. They'd split up by the time we got to London. We got to London in 83, but I'd love to have seen those lot live.
Yeah, I read they got fed up. They'd obviously moved over from Melbourne, but they got fed up with London and what was happening in London. And when you were in London and you were doing your gigs and stuff like that, was London the kind of place you wanted to be with your music? Did they know what to make of you?
Yeah, I've been to that as well. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I just get homesick fairly easily, but London was fairly bleak. We left Cork in the kind of early, like 83, when it was Cork was very bleak at the time. And we went to London thinking that, but London was quite bleak as well. Bleak to live in, and it was hard to get started, and it was fairly depressing time until we started playing music again. So it was about a year before we actually got into gigging and recording and things like that. But the first year was fairly tough going as well.
And this next track is from the Mekons, and there's close connections, I think, between yourselves.
When things were starting to get better. And with the first single, when we kind of signed, we didn't really sign with anybody in those days, but we went with Abstract, and John Langford was brought in to produce the first EP. It was a great guy. We had been playing gigs to Three Johns. We played one gig with them in Dublin before we went over, and then we've played a few in London, and then we started playing a few gigs with the Mekons as well. And they were all great friends. They were a great bunch, fantastic. Yeah. And John Langford then came and engineered the Glee Club, and eventually he produced our last one as well, which was called Him Gooly Gooly Man Dem.
Yeah.
But they actually became good friends.
And they're still going as well.
Oh yeah,
in one form or another. Yeah.
Still regularly, because I can see his activity on Facebook, and he's constantly gigging all the time, which is fantastic. Yeah.
And you've chosen This Sport in Life. Again, it's probably difficult to narrow down tracks for bands like this, but any particular reason you went with this one?
I always liked it, and it's not a typical Mekons song even for the time. But when they used to play live, I was like, play This Sporting Life. And the odd time they'd play it, I'd say it was kind of difficult to do live, maybe, because there's a lot of kind of stuff going on in the background. But it became one of my favourite songs of that era, let's put it that way.
Yeah, and it brings us up to 1982, right? This is This Sport in Life. Ricky, I think I'm beginning to realise why they didn't want to do that live. They
When
must have loved you.
when it was going along, I was saying, oh, good God, how would they have played that live in fairness? I was probably very drunk at the time.
And in terms of stuff like that, I mean, I imagine that's something you plan and you prepare and you do in a studio and you produce it, and you've got time to do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Is that something that interests you? Being in the studio and refining sounds or finding other sounds, or was it more about live experience for you?
It's like I kind of speak a bit more about now because it's fresher in my mind. Is that I like putting things together and adding overdubs, and Liam's the same, and putting more stuff onto it. But I just worry about when we play live that we won't be able to. We'd have to use overdubs when we were live.
Yeah.
And that's why,
Yeah.
like, even back then, I wouldn't be too kind of. I'd be kind of more likely to play what we'd be able to play live on the record,
Gotcha.
rather
Gotcha.
than. Whereas nowadays, we have a lot of overdubs that we're trying to incorporate into the live thing. At that time, we were actually recording what we were playing live.
And was it almost recorded live, if you like, or
Yeah.
was it all, yeah, right. Yeah.
That was kind of. I think John Langford came up with that with the Glee Club. We played all the tracks straight through, and like kind of isolated the instruments, but we actually played them all live, and they were all recorded one evening.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, and that's the way we did it.
Yeah. And we're getting up to around 85, 86 in a second now, but just thinking back then, up till relatively recently, if an Irish band wanted to try and make it in some way, it wasn't a case of going from Cork to Dublin or Galway to Dublin. It was London that you had to head for.
It was. Yeah.
So when you got over there, and then Alan McGee in Creation Records in around 85, were you signed? Does anyone ever actually sign to
No.
Creation? Or
No. That was all kind of. We played a few gigs in the living room. That was the venue we had in London, and I think the Jesus and Mary chain was starting to kind of. They actually supported us one night.
Jeez.
I know, yeah. I knew there was something wrong there when it's like I said, Jesus, what's going on here? There's all these guys in black shuffling around on the front of the stage. Like, what's going on here? But we met him after kind of they became fairly successful. He met with us. We wanted to do kind of a mad band kind of a scenario, kind of a thing. Like, so we recorded for him. There was nothing signed, obviously. And I think after we met him initially, I don't think I've ever met him again after that or spoke to him.
And it's interesting. He's kind of restarted a label of sorts, and he's got at least one Irish band on there now, actually from Galway. So
all right.
we'll see what's happened.
I don't think we're going to make that actually.
Do you not think so? I don't know.
I don't
might have a long memory.
We were kind of not. We weren't kind of a Creation band at all. Even though we are on their kind of header. Did you see their header photograph?
Yeah.
Where they have kind of a Sergeant Pepper kind of with all the artists on it, and we're actually.
And you're in there.
We're actually down in the right-hand corner, so he didn't forget about us completely.
Brilliant. And there's a film coming out actually. On his life. There you go. There's definitely a film in your story as well, Ricky. Has anyone ever thought about it?
There is a few people have to mention it to me over the years, but if they do it, they'll do it. Like even the hiding from the landlord. I mean, like that. The album that came out last year, that was about 30 years in planning.
Wow.
And we finally got it out last year during the middle of a pandemic.
And it is out there, and as you know, I stick up links to everything throughout this as well.
Yeah.
But that's definitely worth getting, because there's a lot of people that put a lot into that as well, in terms of the fanzine booklet type thing in there and everything. It's absolutely brilliant.
Did a great job. Yeah. It looked fantastic.
Yeah, it does credit. So this next track then is Stump from 1986, and obviously there's connections here with Micro Disney and other things. Do you want to say a little bit about this?
Yeah, because Stump, Mick Lynch, the singer, Mick Lynch, we all hung around together before we moved to London. Mick Lynch, Donnelly, we were all kind of like you could even say Cahill and all these guys. We were all one kind of a gang. And Rob McGahey, of course, was the drummer. But when they came to London, and I didn't even know they were there, to be honest with you. and I was in London at the same time. And apparently we played a gig together. Now we
Apparently.
apparently, yeah, and there's a lovely poster online for the gig, and it was in the ambulance station in the old Kent Road. And now, if ever anybody was ever in the ambulance station at that time, they'll kind of understand why I can't remember it.
All right. Okay. Fair enough.
But,
It must be funny. It must be funny coming across things like that. Going, did I play there?
yeah, I did. And I was talking to Rob recently, and he said, yeah, we played a gig. They supported us, I think, as far as I remember. And and a few years later, then they were playing in a huge venue up in London, and we were playing in a pub down the road, that sort of thing.
And it's odd, even though, I was saying about moving to London or whatever, but probably around early 80s or whatever, you then had this little band called U2 in Dublin kind of beginning to play gigs. And would you have played at the same time around the same places at any point?
Well, yeah, I mean, U2, they used to play in Cork, and we all supported them. I think Michael Disney supported them, so we supported them a few times. And they used to come to Cork because the venue in Cork was probably the best in the country for kind of that kind of music at the time.
Yeah.
Whereby there'd be 1,000, maybe 1,500 people there every Saturday night. And it didn't matter who was playing, to be honest with you. It's just a ready-made venue that sold out every week. And we supported them quite a few times. But I remember thinking, great band. I didn't realise they were going to become.
I've not heard much of them recently myself,
no,
actually.
I didn't
Now, Mick Lynch, do you think there's similarities there between himself and Finbar in terms of front men?
There is a bit of this kind of sense of humour and kind of and the two of them used to hang around together a little bit in Cork as well. But Mick's antics on stage, even though they were different, but they were similar, if you know what I mean. They were coming from the same angle, but they were two completely different entities.
And I think the Tube, the television program based in Newcastle, I think they made him a video for this as well at some point.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah. I was dead jealous there. We never got to do any of those things. But we actually did a cover of this song in the Donnelly anniversary gig there 2 years ago.
Oh, brilliant!
The cover was hard enough to do a cover of it, in fairness. But it was,
well, here we go.
Yeah, it was kind of in memory of Mick.
Yeah,
it's great.
Right. This is Buffalo. This is Stump.
Big the toothpaste, Harry? Mind the oranges, Marlon. Click, 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 click. Oh, look over there. Click, 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 click. Peter, where's Peter gone? Oh my God, don't mention the toothpaste. Don't go the toothpaste, Harry. Don't mention. Mind the oranges, Marlon. Look over there. Click, 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 click. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Where's Peter gone? Oh, mind the oranges. The oranges. Peter, where's the toothpaste? I really like your suitcase. Where are the oranges, Marlon? Over there. How do you get off the bus? How do you get off the bus? Oh, I forgot the toothpaste. Look over there. It's the toothpaste, Harry. Don't mention the oranges, Marilyn. Oh my God, look. Where's Peter? He's in the suitcase. What's the toothpaste? Where's the toothpaste, Harry? How do I get off the bus? Where's the toothpaste, Harry? Don't forget the toothpaste, Harry. How do I get off the bus?
Mind the oranges, Marilyn. You're listening to Dermot. They say I live in the past. I got Ricky Dineen with me, and that was a brilliant track. And again, there's something about Stump. You listen to that, and you can't not smile.
Exactly, yeah. And I remember we were trying to learn it, do it. And like, Jesus, you're really laughing when you're doing it. And when we played it on the night, Rob McGahey, the drummer, was in the audience as well. So we have to do it up front to him now as well.
Oh no, that's absolutely brilliant. And we're up to 1987 now when we're looking at the chronology here. Bogshed from Hebden Bridge in West Yorkshire influenced a number of Irish bands, but a number of bands around the UK as well. You were listening to these at the same time as when you were doing your stuff in London as well, I suppose.
Yeah, we kind of came across, like, they stayed in our place a few times when they came to London. You know, I don't think we actually played a gig together with them, but I've seen them many times. Like, and they're just superb. I mean, you look at idols today, and bands like that. Like, I mean, this was happening 30 years ago, like 35 years ago, and they were doing it consistently, like kind of single after single or track after track. This is not a track that I picked. I just, I picked the band for the next one. So I just had to pick a track. But I could pick loads. They're brilliant. Very underrated as well.
Absolutely. And I think need revisiting as well, like yourselves and all the new stuff you're doing as well. Right, this is Bogshed with Excellent Girl. Yeah, you're dead right, aren't you? We got bands like Idols and others, and we've got those bands, yourselves, Bogshed and others, back, how many years beforehand?
Yeah, because it's unbelievable. And they're like Bogshed are kind of, I know when they're mentioned online, like people always kind of rally around and say, yeah, we're a great band, like, but they're largely forgotten, which is horrible.
Yeah.
Two of the guys died reasonably young, wasn't there? Yeah,
That's right.
And it was very sad, like, but they deserve more. We have to get a reissue of Bogshed immediate.
Definitely, I totally agree with you as well. And I notice John Robb from the Membranes and stuff like that. He's always kind of pushing forward great bands like yourselves from there. And he's got a book that has just been reissued called "Death to Trad Rock." One of the phrases he's used is in the 80s there was a spiky defiant underground scene of bands like Membranes, Nightingales, Three Johns, Bogshed, and so on. I think they deserve to be heard again. Absolutely.
Do. Yeah. Superb.
You're up to 95 now, Ricky, and you had one word to describe this track, so I'll let you tell me about it from David Bowie.
Well, it is a David Bowie track, and it was kind of like I wanted to kind of get something kind of away from post-punk, and this is the one that I choose. Like, I mean, I could have, like, there was other ones like The Associates, Billy Mackenzie, the voice of him, kind of more mainstream. Like I could have chosen the Kate Bush track, or even Bjork, things like that. But this I had it actually saved on my computer, and I don't often save music.
No.
And that's what I discovered when I was looking for. I said, "What am I going to pick for this pro?" And this is the one that came up, and I just love the sound of it. It kind of floats over me. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant track. I've never seen the film that it's the sound out of the soundtrack from, but
I think it's a David Lynch film. Is it Lost Highways?
Lost Highways, right? Yeah.
And that's interesting because when you read about bands from Cork and yourselves, and it's an odd one. It's a shorthand, but people often call the music from Cork at that time and other times a bit surreal.
Yeah.
For me, it's always been, well, no, it sounds like Cork to me. I mean, the sense of humour and the oddness sometimes. It's not surreal. It's I don't know. It's an interesting one, but obviously David Lynch's films can be quite surreal. So
he could have moved to Cork and made a few movies there, maybe.
Do you know what? I think maybe that's where he started out. Right, this is the word you used to describe it was brilliance, by the way. This is "I'm Deranged" from David Bowie from 1995.
Funny how secrets travel on. I start to believe if I were to leave, in sky the man shaves his hands held high, a cruise beyond, cruise me, babe. A blonde leaf beyond, beyond, blow me down, no return. I'm deranged, I'm deranged,
I'm Deranged from David Bowie from 1995, the choice of my guest, Ricky Dineen. Ricky, I can't believe it. We've nearly done an hour. And we'll have to do this again, definitely. In terms of your own music, did you stop for a period of time, or would you always still pick up the guitar and...
No, I didn't. The 90s, I practically did nothing at all. 90s was kind of like a lost decade. Donnelly died in 89, I came back to Ireland, and the 90s just kind of were right off. I had a great time now, mind you, but there was nothing musically. And it was kind of early 2005, 2006, somebody asked me to play in a band, in a play, to create music. The play was based in the 80s, and we were meant to be the band, so that kind of got my hand back into it again, and I started interested around 2005, 2006 again.
And in terms of you listening to music, because you've picked a modern Irish band, very interesting band as well. I know a lot of bands have got the publicity maybe, and I know a lot of people have got a lot of respect for girl band, but they've been around for a while and critically acclaimed like yourselves. And sometimes, they don't get the opportunity to develop it even further. Are you listening more to music now these days?
I am a lot more. Funnily enough, a lot of it's thanks to your own show that I don't get to hear, a lot of kind of newer music. I mean, you played I think it was Squid last week or 2 weeks ago.
You like them? Yeah.
I say, oh yeah, I like them.
Definitely.
I'm discovering things like that all the time, and I'm always willing to hear new kind of off the wall-y kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Girl band, I'd seen them live in Cork about 3 or 4 years ago, and they were amazing. In fairness, they were. I mean, there's nothing to describe them, to be honest with you, because they don't seem to actually play their instruments at all.
I know.
Yeah. They seem to be playing around with pedals, and they're banging the guitars, and it's unique and it's really good. And I'm glad they're Irish, to be honest with you.
I mean, they've been described as full of sound and fury and howling from the start to the end, kind of thing. And again, some of the music you were doing back in the 80s and so on that could be described in that way as well by some people. Obviously, you were.
Yeah, I'd be delighted to be spoken in the same category as girl band, in fairness, same tones as them.
And like you said, you got 4 singles now out as Big Boy Foolish, and it's something yourself and Liam, because Liam would have been involved in music as well at a very similar time to you in Cork.
Liam, like on the first album, or the EP that came out, Liam was playing in the band with Mick Lynch called Mean Pictures back in the day. Liam went on to become more renowned as an actor. And but he always kept his hand in at the music. He always told me that music was my first love. Music was my and he always wanted to go back to it. And starting by doing the Donnelly memorial gigs, then we myself and Liam kept going. It was very hard to keep a full band going, with a drummer, bass player, and so we basically decided, we'll keep going ourselves. We could send the tracks, over the internet, and we didn't all have to be in a room at the same time, So we kind of progressed from there,
which is great, obviously, as well, and the ways that you don't necessarily, you don't have to rely on a record label or anything. You got Bandcamp, you've got word of mouth, you've got social medias, so there's different ways of doing it now as well, which is good.
It's great nowadays how quickly, or I won't say quickly because the actual songs take a bit of time to develop, how quickly you can get them out there, But I knew Bandcamp was there. I didn't realise how easy it was to use until the last single we put out. And I said, what? You just submit and it's what? It's out, it's there. No, it's what? It's out.
Brilliant. Great opportunity.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And for anybody out there that wants to put their music out, stage 2 then is getting people to play it, which aside from people like yourselves now on kind of internet, land-based radio stations are very hard to get through to these days.
That's quite sad as well, because I was talking to someone else recently about the same thing, an up-and-coming band in Ireland, and they said there's a couple of exceptions within Ireland, but it is very difficult for them to get played and they're finding people from America and England and Australia wanting to talk to them about their music, but they don't feel they've got the outlet in Ireland at the moment. So
it's funny that like even kind of like your program played us last week. We kind of got airplay in Australia, and we're finding it hard to get local airplay. Now we do get a bit of national airplay over here as well.
Yeah.
And
Mr. Creedon.
Which is great with John Creedon, who's always good to kind of put like, new music. But I suppose John Creedon, we're cheating a bit there, like because John is from Cork, and maybe it's a bit of a Cork connection that we can get in that way, But just trying to get on regional radio stations over here. You can't even send them your music. There's no way to send them your music, and you can't like even. When they're on Twitter, their kind of messaging is off, and you can't.
Yeah,
So we'll rely on you, Dermot.
Well, you know what I mean. I'll be proud. I'll be proud to say I was playing them in 2020 and 2021, but I think lots of people are going to be playing. So I think it's going to be good, Ricky. And keep going with it. I mean, here's me saying keep going with it. Who the hell am I? But you're obviously enjoying it as well, because that's really important.
It keeps us in. I mean, at my age, I should be out kind of golfing or something like that.
No, don't go to the dark side.
Don't leave Liam here, because Liam was doing a bit of golfing before all this happened, or before.
All right.
We'll say nothing about that.
No, right. So I'm going to leave everyone tonight with this track called You're a Dog from Girl Band. It's been a pleasure, Ricky, and hopefully we'll get to chat again. I think we could do another hour at least on this one. All right.
Dermot, thanks a million.
No problem. Take care.
Bye-bye, Slán.